Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. First, thanks for visiting my channel. I appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button before you leave, that helps YouTube to find my channel and promote it. So I'd appreciate it if you do that. Today I wanted to do, we use a lot of circles in jewelry, and I thought today would be a good day to do some pendants that all incorporate circular designs into them. So just for something thematic, I thought it might be kind of fun. So I'm going to make three different pendants with circles in them. I think I'll put a stone in one of them, but the rest will just be silver. So we'll see how that goes. Before we get started, I wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 3,700. We're heading towards 3,800. I appreciate it. Feel free to spread the news of my channel. I really appreciate the comments and the kind suggestions and things like that. The other group I wanted to thank is my group of patrons over on Patreon. They're paying for my premium content. They have different tiers they can choose from with different privileges. Generally, everybody but the bottom tier gets exclusive video tutorials over there. But if you just want to support me and be a patron of the arts, you can join at the lowest tier for $5 a month. So whatever the case, I appreciate any kind of help you give me. Check out the video description for links that lead to places like my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, my website where you can purchase some of the jewelry behind me here. All those things can be found in the video's description down below, so make sure to check that out before you leave too. All right, let's get started. So to start, let's look at what I sketched up here. This is that design book that's on my merch store. I really like these because they got, it's graph paper, but it doesn't have the lines. It has little dots at each corner. So it makes it real easy to make things symmetrical and gauge sizes and stuff. I find it really useful. So here's what I sketched up for today. I've seen a lot of similar things online for some of these. None of these exactly, I don't think, but this one is going to be a hollow ring with some holes drilled through it and another ring in the middle. And I think a variation I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that into a little spinner ring on the spindle there. So there'll be two separate components, and they go across a chain that cuts through that thick circle there. Another one is going to be kind of a box pendant where it's a circular box, so it's got some depth to it. The front will have some kind of texture that we put on it. And then a chain will go through two holes that are drilled in the side. It'll be kind of like a drum, sort of. But I thought I'd do it so it's not, you know, perfectly the same depth throughout the thing, so it gets deeper at the bottom just for some character. And this one I thought I picked out a little turquoise. I think it's a Kingman, maybe? Either that or what's that other one? It's a really light blue color. Maybe one of you turquoise experts out there can tell me. But my guess would be Kingman, maybe. So I went ahead and made a bezel for it in advance just because I'm going to be doing three different things and there's quite a bit to do. So if you want to see how to make bezels, you know, I'll put a link up there for my old bezel video. It's a little old, but the information's still good. So, all right, so materials we'll need. I didn't have anything thick enough to create this round outer part here. I could have used like 18 gauge, but that's about the thickest sheet that I keep around, and it would have been quite a bit skinnier than that. This is still going to be skinnier than that, but I have an ingot that I poured a while back, and I cut a chunk off of that and rolled it through the rolling mill in order to get kind of a thicker sort of thing to make this circle out of. Billet of metal, I guess I should say. So sometime I'll do a video about doing that because it's kind of fun to do. We'll be drilling some holes through this. The other thing, initially my thought was going to be to use some like 10 gauge square and flatten it out in the rolling mill over there, but it doesn't make it wide enough to get a really decent sized hole through it for that sideways hole for the chain like that. And so I needed something with a little more depth. And that's why I did that. So this one I'll use 18 gauge. Oh, for the materials for this inner piece here, I'll probably use 18 gauge sheet, and the thing that spins around it, maybe some 14 gauge round wire. This one, the surface will be 18 gauge sheet that I run through the mill with some texturing, and then probably 18 gauge sheet for the outside, and then something thinner for the back, like 26 or something. It doesn't have to be super strong back there. For this one, I used 20, I think it's 26 gauge 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip with 26 gauge sheet on the bottom. That's sterling silver. I have some tube bales that are pre-made. They're little tube beads basically that are sterling. And then for the back here, I'm probably going to use 14 gauge square wire and strips across there, and then I'll put another piece of sheet on the back to create channels for the chain or for these things to go through. And these I'm thinking I'll probably make out of 14 gauge round. And I'm considering flattening the bottom part a little bit just to give it some character. I don't know, we'll see. Play it by ear. All right, so first I think let's start with this guy here. So we need to find some 18 gauge sheet, and I need a piece. Let's see, maybe I can get it off of this corner right here. I think I can get it right off of here. And to do that, let's make a mark there. And the depth I need to be right there. This is actually probably quite a bit bigger than I need, because when I run it through the rolling mill with a texture sheet, it's going to squish it flat a little bit. Flatten this out. I think I might use this one. This one kind of gives it sort of a sparkly diamond pattern in it. Sort of. They're actually little triangles, but it'll give it some cool texture. So let's do that. Okay, here's my little cheapy rolling mill. It works well enough though. So I've got it set to where the 14 or 18 gauge just about fits in there, but not with the sheet, the extra pattern sheet that I have here. So let's see. I may need to loosen a little more, but if it'll get started, maybe not. Yeah, kind of a cool little pattern there. Kind of like it to be impressed deeper than that. I'm going to try doing it on the back. Just trying to get a little bit deeper pattern in here. I think that's a little cleaner. Use that side to face outwards. Thought I had the camera on. Alright, so what I did was I used this lapidary template to describe a circle, and I trimmed it off roughly, so now I'm going to spend some time getting it nice and round. I'm dumb. I just realized what I should have done. I should have left it square. In fact, I'm not going to file it down anymore, because I should have left it square and then soldered the side piece down. So let's cut the side piece next, make it into, or drill a couple of holes in it for the chain to go through, and then we can curve it into a shape that'll create that box shape. And then we can file it down to match the circle a little bit. So when I took the measurement for the circle, I calculated pi times the diameter, which was I think 20 millimeters, and it came out to be about 63 millimeters for the length. So I need to cut a piece of 18 gauge, thick enough to where I can taper it a little bit once it's soldered down. And so I'm thinking maybe go 7 millimeters. We've got 63 long, right? I might go a little wider than I measured. I'm going to do this a little wider than I measured because I want enough room to work with. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time getting this flat and straight on both sides. Before we make this into a ring, I want to drill those holes for the chain to go through. And I generally use these snake chains for a lot of things. I think it'll work if I do it wide enough. This is, I think, a 1.6 or 1.7 millimeter snake chain. So I'll need to make the hole at least big enough for that. They did at least start making, they used to just have jump rings on these things, but now they have these narrower ones so you can get them through smaller holes, which is kind of nice. So let me get some drill bits in my drill and we'll drill some holes. Okay, so I marked where I want to drill these holes in this piece of 18 gauge before I make it into a circle. And so I'm going to do a little center punch. Terrible aim there. Let's try that again. I kind of got terrible aim when I'm doing that. This is a 7/64 bit, I think, which was a little bit bigger than the diameter of the... I'm going to use my drill rather than my Dremel because it's kind of a bigger hole. For the next pendant I'm going to make, I have to drill some holes in it too. So while we're over here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Back to the regular area. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean up those holes with the file a little bit. If you're a beginner, one of the things that happens when you heat silver is the metal relaxes a little bit. And so if I have two ends together like this and they're just barely touching, if when the metal gets hot, it may relax the metal a little bit and they'll pull apart, and then the solder doesn't like to fill in empty space there. So if you get it pushing together pretty hard, it solves that problem. Very few exceptions. To make sure that solder penetrates that seam, you heat it from the outside to get it to flow just a little more. It'll pull through the seam towards the heat. Well, first I'm going to remove some excess solder on the inside here. If I can locate that little file. sides nice and neat. Yeah, it would have been a way better idea for me to leave this square before I did this. I don't know what I was thinking. So, don't do what I did, do what I suggest you do, which is leave it a square before you solder this part down if you're going to do this thing. Okay, so I'm going to try and get it positioned so I don't have any taper off anywhere. That's about as good as it's going to get. Okay. I'm just going to put them up against the sides on the inside. What I think I'm going to do, this is a pretty big circle, a thick sheet, so I'm going to be generous with the amount that I put in here. So far we got with six so far. These are all about 1/8 of an inch or so. So let's find any other strays here. Just toss it in there for good measure. Just want to make sure they're up against the side and touching the bottom. If that's the case, they should flow into that seam. One of the things I want to do with this is to prevent the chain from getting bent or kinked in those little holes. I was going to put kind of a little smooth area between them so that the chain had a nice running space there. That would be conducive to the chain surviving longer in one of these things. Okay, so I really kind of want it to taper a little bit this way. So I'm going to try and get it to file its on this way. Okay, so I was going to create a little way for the chain to have a smoother pathway there. Let's see if I got some scrap silver here later on. This I think is, here's a little piece of 18. I think I just cut a little piece of that about the same height. So one of the things you have to worry about with these box kind of things is if you try and solder it shut sealed, the gases change volume as they get hot or cool, so you got to be a little careful about creating sealed areas where the gases can cool. Or the next time, if you solder shut a place and then you heat it again, sometimes things can explode. So like this right here is too tall, so it's going to end up sealing a little closed area there, and I don't really want that. So I could either drill a hole through this or cut it a little bit shallower so that when I put the back of this on, it doesn't create a seal there. So I think that's probably what I'll do, so it's just a little bit shallower. Let's do it like that. Just trying to get it so you can see it better. Okay. As soon as I pushed it down, it ran all the way along the whole bottom there. That's nice when that happens. Okay, just a 26 gauge sheet. Should be able to just solder that on there, hopefully. So let's flux it and give it a go. The thing that may be a little challenging about this solder joint is there's quite a bit of mass in the piece up top here, and not very much in that sheet on the bottom because it's thin sheet. And so the one up top here, well, it may actually balance out okay because the bottom one is harder to get up to temperature, but it's less massive, while the big one up top is more exposed to the flame, but it is more massive, so maybe it'll work out just perfect. How long you're keeping it there? Because ideally what you're trying to do is to get everything to reach that temperature at about the same time. The temperature of the solder flows. Okay, let's give this a go. One other thing you can do if you have trouble getting the bottom piece hot enough is you can tip it up a little bit. Some people use those tripod kind of setups where you can get below with the flame. That's kind of nice. I actually had one for a while and I never tried it. I didn't think I would ever use it, so I gave it to somebody. Okay. Let that one pickle for a while. I'll probably run it through some baking soda water to make sure there's no acid left inside of the holes in there before we polish it up. Okay, so let's do this one next. I've already as you saw, we already drilled the holes for here and here, and I need to cut this off and file these ends flat so we can make it into a circle like that. And from there, we can just go ahead and start making this piece separately, and we'll have to figure out how big we want to make that. But we should have big enough holes here to get the chain through now. So let's. I measured out. It came out to be. What was it? 78.5 millimeters, if I remember right. All right. So let's make this into a rounder shape here. I'll let that cool off a minute. It's so much metal that it's retaining a lot of heat. If I hit the liquid over there, it's going to, it could crack it. So if you let it cool down a little bit before you do that. All right. So, one of the things I may do is I may take a diamond bar and ream these out so they're a little bit sloped, so the chain kind of exits nicely. So I'm going to do that off camera probably, and then I'm going to throw this in the pickle for a while, and then we'll start working on the centerpiece. Okay, did some cleanup on it, so we can go like that. That'd make a cool pendant just by itself, I think, but I'm going to do that center thing as well. So the scale on this part needs to be pretty small. So how about, I got this little piece of, I think this is 22 gauge. Let's try this. Let's see. Well, I'm glad I didn't choose 18 gauge if I was going this small. That would have been pretty hard to bend. Okay, I'm going to try and spend a few minutes getting this into a roundish shape again. Okay, so I got a tube that's reasonably round, and I need to find a little 14 gauge round. Here's some 14 gauge round. And I'm going to make a jump ring that's just a little bit bigger than this. So let's see how this fits. It does fit around it, that's good. Now I wanted to give this a little texture so it sparkles, maybe. I have a chasing hammer that I use sometimes too, but okay, that just gives the outside a little bit of sparkle. Alright, now in order to make this so that ring is contained on here, we have to flare both ends. So I do a lot of times. Got this dapping block. Find one that's closest to being able to fit in there. Then you can start flaring it out that way. Or, if you prefer, actually let's try a wider one now. Since it's just a little bit bigger. It should be wide enough to where this can't come off. Now we need to flare the other side with that on there. I think that's good enough. It'll be like that. I think that'll be kind of fun once it's all polished up. That's number 2. Number 3 is next. Third one, use this little bezel that I have here. Let me find one of those tubes. These I got from Rio, I think. And they're item number 682248. So should be big enough. They're just little sterling tubes. Let's do that. On the back here, though, like I said, I think I'm going to make 3 pathways for these guys. But I guess first, before we do that, we ought to make the rings here. So let's make those out of 14 gauge round. Okay, so the outer one going to be about, I'm going to call it 32 millimeters. 32 millimeters diameter. And then this one, we'll call it 21. And the inner one here, let's go with like 10. Let's do those lengths and figure out what the diameter should be. So 32 times 3.14. 100 point. So 100 millimeters for that one. Let's see. 21 times 3.14. 65.94, close enough to call 66 millimeters. Getting your math on today. Woohoo. From an English teacher. And this last one is 10. 10 times 3.14 is 31.4, right? Alright, I'm actually not going to solder these. I'm just going to make them into the shape they're going to be. Just like always, I'm going to try and get these two ends pointing towards each other a little more. This is a little mandrel I made for making things round that are kind of in between sizes. Too small for the bracelet mandrel, too big for the other mandrel sometimes. At some point they'll be in my merch store when I get around to making some more. I've made myself kind of a busy schedule, so I haven't had much time to do any stuff on the lathe. Let's see what we're doing in size here. That one's pretty close. That one's pretty close, probably. So that's slightly bigger than I drew, but I think that's okay. I might have them a little bit bigger. Alright, so I need to create 3 slots on the back of my bezel for those to run through. And there needs to be enough room for them to move relatively freely. And so I'm going to set those off to the side for now. Clear some space since I'm making a pile of stuff. And let's cut some square wire and make some little divisions here. I need an arbitrary change of plans. So I was thinking, since I'm using 14 gauge round and I was going to use 14 gauge square as the to lift that up so there's a cavity there, I don't think that it'll be tall enough for this to go in there. I also, when I'm looking at this, I'm going to have to cut these shorter in the middle so they don't go all the way out to the outsides, except for the top and the bottom one, I think. So these other ones are going to get cut a little bit shorter. Carefully position these. Let's cool this off. Just to be safe, I'm going to widen these a little bit with the Dremel and the pathways, and then we'll solder a back on it and put the tube on, and then we'll be almost done. So that's how it's going to be. I just need to, I'm going to take a piece of this 22 gauge, solder it on the back, and then we'll add these things on and solder them in place. Actually, we'll add the bail on and then we'll add these things on. And then I don't think I am going to have, I was thinking about hammering them flat, but I may just get them all nice and smooth and symmetrical and just leave them that way. But I think it'll be kind of cool. So let's cut ourselves a little piece of sheet here. Get it off of that. It's cutting it a little close. I think that I'm going to sweat a bunch of solder onto here. Or should I do it on here? I don't want to move any of that stuff by accident, so I'm going to do it onto the sheet, and then we'll solder that onto the sheet. This one, after we get it all assembled, I'll probably set the stone off camera because this is a long video already, I'm sure. I don't want to scare people away with an hour and a half long video or something. Kind of watching for the solder seam on the top one over here when it starts to flow. And I'll know that we're starting to get it to stick down. Until I see that, I'm going to keep going. And I just saw it. Okay. Just want to make sure we get it soldered down all the way along. Okay. I think next let's solder on this tube. Doo-doo. Oops, come back here. Sometimes when the flux is a little gooey, it sticks to things, like your tweezers. And you get something just positioned perfectly, and then all of a sudden it sticks to your pick when you're pulling it away or something. All of a sudden you're not in the right spot anymore. It's pretty straight. Hopefully. I think so. Now it's time to put the little nose rings on. So really, I shouldn't have too many problems here, because if I don't heat that part, nothing over there will flow, since this is a separate piece, and I can just use a little tiny piece of solder to solder that closed, and then I can repeat that process 2 more times, hopefully. Knock on wood. Alright, I am going to make sure everything's all pickled. I will polish it, set stones in this case, and then I'll show you the final result. Looks like I got polishing hair again. Alright, well here's one of them. Make sure that's a good spot for you to see. Back. Got some fingerprints from my hands are a little dirty from polishing. So this one, that one's kind of cool, like that. These chains are a little tarnished that I threw them on here. I may need to do some shaping of these rings down here to get them just right, but overall I really like that one. I'm surprised. I didn't realize how much I liked that one. So, alright. Those are 3 different variations of kind of circle theme sort of stuff. Probably, like I said, I'll revisit this at some point with some other styles, but those are just a few. You know, lots of different things you can do with circles. Okay, that was the video with the 3 pendants with circles as a motif. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That helps me out a whole lot. Check out some of my other videos. I have over 160 tutorials on my YouTube channel here, and there's stuff that's appropriate for beginners, intermediate, advanced people who are just looking for more ideas. All sorts of good stuff here. And again, you know, if you wanted to see some other relevant links, check out the video description for things like buy me a coffee, join my Patreon. You can visit my website where there's pretty jewelry for sale. And there's even a link to my merch store where you can get things like my design idea notebook or a coffee mug or t-shirts. So I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. Thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing. Take care.